Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life that you love. We're going to start today, as we always do, by thanking our great friends at Monogram Appliances. They are the sponsor here for the Design Dash podcast, and they've also been really good friends of ours here at Design Dash, but also at Laura U Design Collective. We love them because they believe in three main pillars that we as creatives can easily get behind, and that's just great materials, excellent performance, and ownership. And we're really big on relationships and community here as well at Design Dash, and we just love working with the team at Monogram. They are just everything to us. And we thank them again for being a sponsor.
And today on Design Dash Podcast, we're honored to have Malene Barnett join us as our guest today. So Malene is a multidisciplinary artist and textile designer and a visionary community builder. Her work is powerful exploration of the modern Black experience celebrated through her art and design. Her influence extends beyond her creations, as she's also the founder of the Black Artists and Designers Guild, a platform dedicated to promoting Black creativity and culture. Her work and commitment to her community has been recognized in features across major platforms, including an appearance on the show Room to Inspire, as well as a recent feature on her Brooklyn home in Architectural Digest. So we'll talk about that. Malene's work is deeply rooted in her heritage, aims to inspire and shape the spaces we inhabit, making them a source of creativity and identity. Actually, Malene and I met through the design industry at High Point Market as style spotters back in 2016. Yeah. And since then, she's been super busy. So we have a lot to catch up on in the world of Malene Barnett. So welcome, Malene. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Laura. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. So just to jump right in, Melissa and I launched Design Dash to openly discuss the importance of designing one's life with intention, particularly creative women, many of whom are entrepreneurs. So when you began your career, I like to start with this question. When you began your career, did you chart your path, seeing yourself becoming this community builder and activist from day one? Or have you found that, work begets work? Have you found the more work you've done, it led you in a direction that you maybe didn't anticipate when you were originally getting going as an artist and designer?
Well, I look at my studio practice. My art has always been my activism. And so it was never any separation between the work that I do for the community as well as the work that I do in my studio practice. There's so much synergy in that because of the subject matter that I'm focused on, which is really about, telling those narratives of the Black diaspora with a heavy emphasis on focusing on Black women makers. So there was never a question of, how am I going to become like this activist? I've always been, because I've always been focused on how do I uplift the community, knowing about the inequities and the disparities that the Black community has experienced.
And so when you were starting out as a young designer, a young artist, did you map out your path? Do you set goals? Are you looking 10 years, 20 years, generationally? Are you looking into the future and saying, this is where I want to end up? Or is it more of a winding road and you're pivoting as you're going?
Well, it's funny because when I first started my path on, say, design, it was textile design. And I was really focused on fabric design. And then I got into rugs. And my goal was always to be like this international home textile designer, right? And I was focused specifically on the home. And I was thinking about, I wanted this big brand that I'd be international, all these different products. And what I realized about the industry, in order to be in that position, it required a part of me that I wasn't willing to commit to. And I also realized that the work that I wanted to do, which was much more, well, I'll just say this, what I wanted to say in my work was much more powerful than what the design industry would hold. And so I had to pivot because I knew that the narratives that I wanted to share didn't lend itself to design as much as it did to art. even though I don't like to separate the two, but I knew based on the social constructs around disciplines and mediums that I had to shift in order for my voice to be heard in the way that I wanted to do. And so, with that said, I think just being an entrepreneur or a creative, I'm constantly pivoting, I'm constantly shifting. So that's part of the process of developing as a creative. I may have started in rugs and now I'm really focused on clay and doing ceramic sculptural installations that are connecting my heritage as far as home, thinking about space in the home for Black people and what that looks like. And so what I'm doing is I'm going back to my origins in West Africa, not knowing exactly which country, because again, being a part of the diaspora, we don't necessarily know which space, so we claim it all. And I'm very, big on, not having to identify the exact. So I'm able to connect. And so I've been looking at a lot of the women who have legacy of surface design and focused in architecture, and specifically the mud architecture. So whether I'm in Ghana looking at the Kasena, or in Nigeria looking at Yuli paintings, or I'm looking at the mud cloth from Mali, it's all the synergies around these processes that have helped me to figure out and pivot and have more clarity on what I want to say in my work.
And do you feel like it's the specificity of those mediums that is more inspiring to you or more aligned with your work rather than interior design or design in general? So you feel like, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth so you can correct me, but is it getting more specific into those mediums that has helped you tell your story or tell the story of a whole group of people?
Definitely. Materials and process are very important to me. And that's how I make. Everyone has their way of, coming up with their ideas. But, for me, I want to tap into those ancestral processes and the materials, because that is helping to guide me on with my bigger picture, which is to build on the legacy. And so for me, if I think about legacy, it's about, you have to go back and look to see what were the people before me, my ancestors, what were they doing? How were they making? Because if you really look at it closely, the work that they were making, hundreds, thousands of years ago, it's still relevant today. In my eyes, it was always modern. It was always contemporary in a sense. So how do I build on that now, being in a place that may not necessarily have been my birthplace by heritage, but now that I'm able to build on it, because I'm able to learn and tap through the ancestors on how they were making, how they were thinking, and then apply it to the lifestyle I'm living today.
Melissa, you want to jump in? I have so many questions. Okay, Melissa.
Ask away.
I have a lot of questions about this as well. Well, this really just ties into our podcast and what Design Dash is trying to do overall. What we're trying to do with the podcast, and especially with the website, is really highlight female creatives, especially female artists that have maybe been underserved or maybe been brushed aside in the history. I mean, we just wrote an article about Augusta Savage, and I just learned about her in the writing of that article. And I listened to another interview that you were in, and she was a huge influence on you. So I guess I just want to understand a little bit more about how you've been inspired by the history of Black female artists. You've said that you come from a line of Black female artists. So what can we and anybody else that's listening find inspiring in what the lived experience of Black women in artistry, what you guys are doing now and in the past?
Well, I think oh gosh, Melissa, this is such a deep question, because there's so much to be inspired by when we think about Black women. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna advocate and represent, because of the amazing work that we have done and continue to do. You see, I was raised by a Black woman, and my grandmother, who migrated from St. Vincent, a small tiny island in the Caribbean, to the U.S. by herself, who left her 4 children with her mother to pursue a better life, quote unquote. And I put that in quotes because that's part of my work, is critiquing, even with all her sacrifices, was life really better? And so, when we think about the history of this country and even of the world. Black women have always played a pivotal role in the well-being of any community. And so it's such a disservice and misconception of our position and our visibility. And one of the things I tell you about Black women, what we do is that we don't wait for anyone to recognize our work. And we do it with grace, and we do it knowing that we may not be recognized on a bigger scale. But that's not going to stop us from doing the work that needs to be done. Whether that is work on educating the community, the work as far as making art to represent us, that's whether it's educating the family, taking care of the family. So community for us is not just like having support with your immediate or direct family. It's community is a bigger, we think about the people as a whole. And so Black women have always played an instrumental role in any struggle, and we continue to do. So I think that the thing is that people have to want to learn and know more and be curious. And what happens is that because we're in a space that is forcing us in many ways not to want to learn, but books are being banned about people like an Augusta Savage, which again, when you have when you have a group of people that have historically put Black women in certain places, you're going to have to think about why are these people thinking this way? Why are these things happening? And when you stay curious and want to know more about the origin stories of any experience, and that's when you'll start to know more. And that's about any group of people. So of course we know that there are tons of Black women in America, if we're talking specifically America, that have contributed to the well-being of this country. So if it's up to people like myself, and not just me, to be honest, so you as well, Melissa, Laura, everybody, to recognize and learn more. Just like how you learned about Augusta. Listen, there are thousands of Augustas out there. Mm-hmm. Just like there's thousands of Harriets out there. I could run down the list of names. There are thousands of us. Problem is there's so many of us that are unknown. And so my work is really about bringing the names and recognition. And the thing is that I can't do it alone. I need your support. Laura, I need your support. Melissa, I need your support. And all the women out there listening, we all need your support to uplift and share the knowledge, because sharing is caring, and so the more knowledge that we have, the better that we are as a people. But see, when we decide to live in ignorance, that's when we have the challenges that we have. And so, you have to decide and surround yourself by that community who's going to really support and uplift you. So I know I've said a lot. So,
well, let's talk about the community that you've built. We can talk about the Black Artists and Designers Guild. Let's talk about the origin story for the BADG.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've been working, and I had been working in design at that point for more than 10 years, and probably longer. I can't even keep track anymore, to be honest. But I was just tired of being the only one in the space. I was tired of fighting to have recognition around Black culture in design. I was tired of opening magazines and not seeing our work being recognized when I already knew so many talented Black creatives. I surrounded myself with them, not just in America, but globally. I've traveled around the world, and when I would travel, I would always seek out different Black creatives. And one thing I learned is that we all shared the same challenges. We had desires to want to not only grow our business, but I think to collaborate. And I wanted to create a safe space for us so we could do just that, where it was not focused on any particular discipline nor the industry. Because in order for us to navigate the industry, we needed to empower ourselves, because there are certain social structures that we didn't start and that we know that it's going to take many years to deconstruct. And so understanding these constructs around us, I thought, you know what? I'm going to gather a group and we're going to create based on what it is that we need and for the Black community. Because no one is really thinking about us as a people who need the shelter and support through, through the built through the built environment, I should say. And so we wanted to attack that and address the issues and concerns around. And a good example is our Obsidian project, which was a virtual concept house that we created during the pandemic, and where 23 of the makers in the guild got together and designed spaces. And we were focused on how can we create a space for the Black family that is nurturing, inspiring, involving technology. And when we think about Black family, we're not talking about the nuclear family. We're talking about all the extensions, the space for grandma and the aunties, the cousin who just came over, and it wasn't about a heterosexual couple. It was about bringing in all the sexualities, gender inclusive, even disability. We created a space that nurtured all of this. And so it became our lab. And so the BADG lab is really our space where we get to create, come together, and really explore what does it mean to be Black in a creative environment? What does it look like to create space that are centered on Black bodies being nurtured? And how do we use art and design as tools to create these opportunities for not just for us to be inspired, but, the community at large to be inspired?
And so on top of the Obsidian House and everything that Black Artists and Designers Guild, everything you're doing with this community, how do you envision the future of Black art and design evolving? Where do you see yourself going and the whole community?
Well, it's so funny. I mean, I'm not one to predict anything, so I just know that we're all evolving. Like myself, my work is I'm really interested in doing more public art spaces and installations with my work, because I do want more of the community to experience the work. And so in order to do that, I would have to definitely lean more into public art spaces. With saying that, I also feel that the work BADG is doing is leaning in that direction as well. That we will be doing more work that where the public can interact. We are working on a project now that I can't even say, but we will continue.
Oh, come on! You can't tease all of us like that.
Just stay tuned. It's a good one. Just stay tuned. So, but yeah, I think we're continuing to build on, because again, you got to remember, we built Obsidian during the pandemic where we weren't able to go out anywhere. And so now we're in a position now where we're having opportunities where we could build out spaces so the community can come and experience. And that's really what I want, BADG to evolve into, is to have more interactive spaces that, again, where you could learn, touch, learn about the history of different Black makers in art and design, learn about heritage, learn about the African diaspora culturally. So we are doing that. In addition, I do see that I think that you're going to see more Black women centered in art and design, because I feel that is also a lacking. And that I think that, with artists like myself, and there's so many artists out there who are, focused on the uplifting and the narratives around Black women, I think you're going to just see more of it, because there are just a lot more Black women who are in the creative sector whose studio practice are focused on, that's their mission.
And if someone is listening and wants to get involved in BADG, or someone that's a Black artist or designer, how do they start? Like, what if they have no idea? Like, where do I even go? How do they get involved with you?
Well, well, it's so funny. Well, first, listen, BADG is a nonprofit. We are registered 501c3. So we take donations, and that is how we operate. So
Okay.
donate first. Support us
Perfect.
financially. Okay. That is a major component to how we sustain ourselves and how you can build with BADG. Okay. So that's first. Then, if you're interested in becoming a member, do have we are going to be opening our membership soon. So we're working on a new platform, so they could go to the website, they could join our mailing list, and people will get notified. And then, of course, follow our Instagram at Bad Guild, and then they could also follow us there and stay tuned for announcements.
And so those are easy ways just to jump in and get involved right away. Um, is there like some deeper work? Are you looking for people to help just come in and really support beyond financial and following? How would they get started?
Well,
Is there a
again,
project they could get involved in?
we see, this is the thing about Badge. We have our own projects. And so when you
Okay.
come into our family, you have to be supportive of our projects. Unless you're
Yeah.
bringing something that aligns with our mission, then we could have a conversation. But everything has to align with our mission. And so that is part of it's funny, it's part of the challenge of, when people want to come and work with us, because they're more focused on how it's going to benefit them and not
Right.
about benefiting the organization and supporting the mission. So if you want to get involved, of course, we have our email, but again, share what the project is. And we have to see if it's aligned with what we do. We have our badge lab, and we're always looking for individuals, corporation, organizations, foundations to support that space where we are creating without a client, which is very key right here. We're creating without a client, so that
That's
because of
interesting.
that
Yeah.
structure, it allows our creativity to flow because there are no restrictions. And so we want people to support the importance of having for us to have a space where we could explore these ideas and then bring them to reality so that the community at large can experience them. Because the goal is, once people engage in the spaces that we're creating and the ideologies, that is only going to empower them to want to learn more of, whether if they're a Black person, learn more about the culture. They're going to think about their home as a different space, right? And then and the point is, we're trying to empower 1 million Black families, which we did with Obsidian, and we're very proud of it, but we want to grow from that. We want to build. So, yeah. So hopefully that answers the question on how people
Yeah,
can
no,
get
that's great.
involved. Because
I love
again,
it. Yeah, no, that's really helpful.
yeah. Melissa, you
Yeah,
got
and
a
if people
question
out there
around that?
listening and
Yeah, I know, I
I
can
was gonna say, if
tell.
people out there listening and viewing, if they haven't seen Obsidian, please check it out. I mean, Malene, this is when I first found out about you, as we were one of the designers who was simply sharing the word about Obsidian and promoting it. And when I was looking at it, it was absolutely one of the most innovative ways, I think, to look through design that I'd seen in a long, long time. And I'm not a designer, so I don't know how much that means. But it's just such a very cool concept. The way to view it, especially when you're adapting to the pandemic and nobody could actually see it in person, was just so clever, so inclusive, so smart. I mean, here it is. It's stunning.
Yeah, and that's the legacy wall that I designed for the house. And that's in Revamp's room. It's a view of the outdoors. But I mean, we have such an amazing team behind the project. It was Layden Lewis and Nina Cook John who built the framework for the house, and then all of the different members who designed the spaces. It was pretty incredible, the project, and it continues. It continues to grow from us. It's our legacy project, and that's what we're really invested in creating legacy projects. And so, when people come to us, they got to think about these projects that we're doing. It's long term. It's about being a part of the archive, being a part of the design canon, as the conversation. But in order to have these conversations around like Black art and design, we need to have need to have the materials to show, to have these conversations. And that's where, the people who want to come and support have to understand the importance. How can you continue to have conversations around Black art and design if you don't have the work to show for it? And as we all know, you need to have financial support to bring these projects to life. And so what we continue to strive for is to build on these ideas, but we also understand too that we need the financial support to bring them to fruition. And that's where we want people to come in and understand the importance of supporting Black art and designers.
And so you mentioned Layden Lewis. And so I want to bring up your collaboration of your own home in Brooklyn, which I am in love with. And you're living in your own work now. And so I'm wondering if you could share just personally how, I guess, your personal heritage and the narrative of Black culture influence those design choices for your own home.
Ooh. Well, I always think of home. It's the only space in our life that we get to truly control. You get to pick whatever it is you want to live with, right?
Isn't it wonderful?
Once you walk out that door, you're in someone else's space, dictated by all these other constraints. So for me, I've spent a lot of hard work, money, tears have fallen from this house, owning this house. And, it was always my dream and goal to live in a space that was surrounded by the work of people that look like me. And, because part of my life's practice is I always show gratitude to the ancestors. And I also want to show gratitude to the people that are around me who are living today. And so it was really important for me to have works by Black artists, as well as have my own work, because I have yet to fully live with my work. I make, and it's funny, as a maker, you're constantly making and other people have the work, but how much of it do you get to keep and embody yourself? And so finally, I've had the opportunity with Layden to create a space that really embodies me for where I am right now. And I know I'm growing, but this is the moment where I am right now. And it just really feels good to be able to embody all of what I've created over the past, 20 plus years.
It's beautiful. I love it. I need to visit. I'm just going to come over and we're going to have tea.
Yes, come through. It's messy right now, but because I do live in a house.
Messy is relative. And you're
it is.
also just a little busy. Like what we're talking about, if your house is even remotely tidy, I'm impressed.
Here at Design Dash, we're always talking about designing a life that you love. And I think for a lot of our women, our listeners and our viewers right now, that means a second act. That means pivoting. That means kind of shedding what they're doing currently because maybe it doesn't serve them and doing something else. And I was listening to an interview with you, and there was just a lot of talk about reinvention, and you went back to school after already finding so much success, which is something I really envy because I toy with that because I did so poorly in college, which is not like me. So where do you find that determination? And, for our listeners who are thinking about a second act, what would you tell them?
Well, first I tell them to go for it. Just do it. Yeah. I think, listen, life, as beings, we're always evolving, right? And I think if we stop learning, then what's the point of being? Because what I said earlier today about being curious, I've stayed curious. I'm a lifelong learner, and so when you adapt that type of thinking, you find ways to continue to learn. And when I'm interested in something, I really go in. I want to know as much as possible. I want to be in the community with the people who know more than me so I can learn. I want to improve on my skills. So then how do you do that? one of the ways is through school. And because, but there are different ways to do it. But for me, it was going back to school, grad school. My mother was an educator. I grew up in a space where it was never a question of whether you were going to college, it was where you going to college. So my mother has her doctorate. She got the highest degree this country could offer when she migrated. That was her dream. And so, it's funny, out of all her children, she was shocked when I told her that I'm going back to school, because I was the one where I just wanted to paint and draw all day. Yeah. But I know that that's, embedded in me in many ways, the ideas of learning. And so for those who are like contemplating, oh, should I, you have to plan for this too. I think people forget that none of my work has happened overnight. I've gone through many challenges and struggles to get to where I am. And the struggle is real. I still have my struggles. But I also know that if I don't plant the seeds, then I won't be able to enjoy the harvest later. And so grad school for me was another a planting of the seed of where I want to go. And I know I'm going to evolve and change. And I'm really curious as to see what this new path is going to bring for me. But the thing is that I'm not afraid to take the time to find out. And I think that's one of the things that many people have to understand. You can't be afraid to see what's going to happen. And guess what? If it doesn't become what you thought it was going to be, that's okay. Because then there's a new goal or a new dream that you'll see, a new opportunity, and you just continue down that path.
That's powerful advice. All right, I guess I got to get my application out, figure it out.
Right. If you needed permission to start your second act, you have it here. Malene just gave you the go ahead. Jump in and do it. I love it. I think that's great. Yeah. I'm inspired too. Melissa, where are you you're going back to school now? We're gonna have to make a plan.
Good. Yes. It's good. Do it. And plus, I actually love school. So for me, it was easy. I love school.
I do too. And I love learning. And I just didn't have a very good experience because I didn't prepare for it. I was, you're 18 going to college.
You see,
yes, I agree.
But see, college, this is the thing I think for people too. You have to do your research. You can't just pick a school just because of a name. You got to see who's actually teaching and do your research and understand, like, these are people you're going to be around for the next 2 to 4 years, right? It's not, and I did, I looked at a lot of schools, and believe me, this was not my first time applying to grad school. It was my third time. Okay. Because the first 2 times I did not get accepted. You understand? So, but that didn't deter me, because what happened was in 2018, I said, okay, I'm going to go back to grad school. And I applied, and I didn't get into any of, all 5 said no. But guess what that did to me? But you know what it did? I said, oh, okay. You know what? I'm going to go get a studio. I'm going to go make work just so I could get into school, and I'm going to apply again. I didn't let it deter me from the goal. I just said, okay, I need to go back and I need to focus, and I need to, I have to understand what this process is about. And then the next time, the third time, I got 5 offers.
Oh, great.
So it's again, we think that sometimes when things don't happen, oh, it wasn't meant to be. Sometimes we got to look at ourselves and see, well, guess what? Maybe the work wasn't of quality, or didn't have the narrative wasn't real specific, or they were looking for something else, which is okay. That's why you have to find the space that fits the work that you would like to make, and have the professors that are going to help you get there and support those ideas, because not all schools are not equal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm encouraged.
So I'm an education advocate, right? You see?
I love it. And so, Malene, I know we're pretty much out of time here, so I'm sure people want to continue to follow you. You kept us on edge with a big announcement for a new project that we're going to have to keep in touch about.
Yes.
So
yes.
If people want to find you, what's your URL, your handles on socials? Where can people follow?
Sure, definitely on Instagram. I'm at Malene.Barnett. That's Malene dot Barnett. And then my website is MaleneBarnett.com. And then badge is badgill.info.
Okay, thank you. I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, this
I
was a
loved
great
hearing from you. It was
convo.
great to catch up.
Thank you. Good to see you both. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on designdash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.